An argumentative video essay by Michelle Pack. Today, I will try to answer the question, should there be any limits on freedom of speech at a university like Northwestern? I believe that from an ethical standpoint, there should only be very few limits on freedom of speech at a university like Northwestern. A university such as Northwestern should protect most expressions of opinion, but it has the right and obligation to limit hateful speech or actions that are intended only to hurt others. From a legal standpoint, it makes sense for universities to follow the example set by the Supreme Court. From a utilitarian point of view, freedom of speech should be protected because it allows the world to acquire the moral truth and will thus provide the greatest amount of good to society. According to the Oxford Dictionary, freedom of speech is the right to express any opinion without censorship or restraint. In the United States, the Supreme Court has interpreted freedom of speech to cover not only talking, writing, and printing, but also broadcasting, using the internet, and other forms of expression. However, under the Supreme Court's definition of freedom of speech, it has held that certain types of speech, such as defamation, threats, fighting words, and obscenity, are only of low First Amendment value, and thus action can be taken against them. Therefore, it makes sense for American universities to follow the standards set by the nation's highest judicial body. While universities and the country must protect most expressions of free speech, it is not breaking any boundaries by inhibiting types of speech that cause undue harm to others. Northwestern itself claims that the university is committed to providing the ideals of academic freedom and freedom of speech. However, the university is also clear to state that while it is committed to the principles of free inquiry and free expression, discrimination and harassment are neither legally protected expression nor the proper exercise of this academic freedom. As such, it is clearly okay under Northwestern's current mission statement to curtail hateful or biased speech that intends only to harass other members of the Northwestern community. However, it is not okay to limit freedom of expression just because someone else at the university may have a different opinion. From a utilitarian standpoint, freedom of speech should be protected because of its overall value to society. In his article on liberty, the philosopher John Mill of 1806 to 1873 once argued, "If all mankind minus one were of one opinion, and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would no more be justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind." Mill asserted that what now appears unorthodox or even false may later turn out to be both widely accepted and true. Only by encountering alternatives or a contrary opinion does an idea, no matter how true, continue to hold any truth or social benefit. For Mill, the only hope for acquiring the social and moral truth, and therefore the good of all society, or most society, was through the collision of adverse opinions. As no one view could be guaranteed to contain the entire truth, he asserted that society must remain open to any and all points of view if it has any hope of producing happiness. However, it's important to note that while John Mill claimed that freedom of speech or expression should be protected, he also claimed that this social good, or happiness, requires liberty of tastes and pursuits without impediment from our fellow creatures, so long as what we do does not harm them. As such, Mill clearly shows that a utilitarian such as himself would also support a slight censorship of speech at Northwestern. A university should uphold its commitment to freedom of speech because of the overall benefit of a diverse range of opinions. As a bastion of learning, universities should be dedicated to intellectual growth, and this collision of adverse opinions, as Mill puts it, provides for the perfect breeding ground for new and innovative ideas. To limit free speech would be a disservice to the education of a university students, an offense against their right to liberty of taste and pursuit. However, under the same utilitarian point of view, it is clear that a university can and should somewhat curtail the opinions of its students, staff, and faculty if and only if that expression of free speech is intended to cause distress to others. As stated by Mill, the need for liberty of speech does not also condone harm to other creatures. Some may claim that as a private institution, Northwestern has every right to have more limits on free expression. The First Amendment only limits the government and other public entities from infringing on an individual's rights. Private schools, however, are not a part of the public sector, and therefore the First Amendment does not demand for total freedom of speech at a private university, and a school like Northwestern can curtail whatever they want. Teresa Bajan of The Atlantic even says that to invoke the First Amendment in such cases is not a knockdown argument. It's a non sequitur. While this rebuttal may make sense in the context of some private universities, most private schools actually claim to protect free expression and diversity. Northwestern asserts that the university is committed to the ideals of academic freedom and freedom of speech. If a private college advertises itself as a place where free speech is esteemed and protected, such as how Northwestern does, then it should be and must be held to the same standards as a public institution. Specifically, Northwestern is obligated to uphold its claims to the students who have chosen to attend under this gumption. It is important to note, however, that at different private universities, if they state clearly and publicly that they value other commitments more highly than freedom of expression, that private institution has every right to impose its view on students. In summary, universities such as Northwestern should protect the right their students have to the freedom of expression. However, as stated by both the U.S. Supreme Court and utilitarians such as John Mill, they can and should somewhat limit this freedom, especially in cases where the speech is intended to antagonize and cause suffering to other members of the university community.